Guys, outside of Ann Arbor and select parts of California, it seems like there's optimism throughout the country. Heather, we'll start with you. Are you hearing that same thing and people are fired up to get it going in 3 months from now?
Definitely, Steve. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that, as you mentioned, we're starting to see student athletes come back to football programs. And we'll see a lot more of it in June because they've been cleared for those voluntary workouts. But that being said, I think that it's cautious optimism from the people who are actually making the decisions, the Power 5 conference commissioners. They continue to remind me when I speak to them that this is not even in their hands. So I think that we're still going to have a wait and see approach because there's no timetable for the return of college football as of yet. But I do think that seeing some of these student athletes come back in the month of June certainly sparks some of that optimism.
Yeah, I think to build on what Heather said, the testing and the availability of testing is really key here, Steve. And talking to a Big Ten president and a couple people on the infectious diseases task force that's advising the Big Ten, they brought up the fact that most of these schools feel confident there'll be enough testing, especially when the fall rolls around, to test these athletes and everybody on their staff on a consistent basis to avoid that outbreak. That's what's going to ultimately derail seasons or take teams out of the rotation for a couple of weeks at a time.
Steve, I think what fans need to understand, it won't be a cookie-cutter return to college football. It's going to look different in Alabama than maybe it does at Michigan, than maybe it does at Cal, all over the country. But every administrator, every coach, every AD, a lot of the conference commissioners I talk to have hope, have optimism that they're moving in the right direction. And here's the key. What's it going to look like 2 months from now? What's it going to look like a month from now? What will local and state and federal restrictions be like? We don't know that, but certainly everybody I talk to thinks there will be football in some form in the fall.
All right, I have 3 remaining questions myself. Let's play a little lightning round here. You can only pick one topic, okay? So here are the topics. Fans in the stands for college football when we start or when the season might finish. Concerns of parents of these football players. And social distancing in locker rooms, especially visiting locker rooms. I've been inside that visiting pink locker room in Iowa, and that's going to, there's no way you get 6 feet between stalls. So, Chris, you get the first choice. Which of those 3 topics would you like to attack?
Well, I think it's the parents. I've already talked to several ADs and coaches who said they have had phone calls from parents asking what their plan is, expressing concern. I think you're going to see as kids start to report back to campus, not every kid's going to come back, whether it's June 8th, whether it's June 15th. The key word here is voluntary. These workouts are voluntary, but I still think that you're going to see players come back in phases, in waves, and parents in particular want to know what each school's plan is to make sure their kids are going to be safe.
Adam, 2 topics left to choose from. What do you got?
I think it's fans or no fans, Steve. And this is not going to be a coach or AD decision, maybe not even university president. It's going to be more of a state decision, a governor decision. Where are they comfortable having large gatherings? It's going to be different, in my view, from what I've heard from people around the sport. State to state, region to region. The Oregon governor has already said that any large gathering in the month of September has to be either canceled or significantly modified. That includes Ohio State at Oregon in mid-September. I think that the governors are much more important when it comes to the fan issues, and the schools are going to have to adjust to what happens in each of their individual jurisdictions.
All right, Heather, that leaves you with locker rooms, which I think might be the most fascinating of the questions. How do we get around that?
It's really difficult because anybody who's been in a locker room knows that they are right next to each other. So I think what's going to happen is first they're going to have to cut down on the travel roster size, and that's not just for the locker rooms, but for the planes that they fly on as well to get there. But I've talked to some doctors who have said you're going to see hospital level type sanitation and chemicals being used to disinfect those areas. But I'm glad that I'm not really the one that has to come up with that plan, Steve, because that's way above my pay grade, and I can't wait to figure out how they do it.
It's not a problem in the NFL, right? Those are palaces in the NFL. They have many, many locker rooms in many of those stadiums. That is simply not the case in the college football which we live in. So, Heather, Adam, Chris, thank you all very much for your time and your patience. And keep those fingers crossed. In 3 months from now, we're kicking off playing some college football.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.